This is a Soulfire production. Welcome to Mother. No, it's Mother. Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time we rewrite the Mother Code. Hi, and welcome to Mother. I'm Dr. Gertrude Lyons, your host, and we're here rewriting the Mother Code. Well, I'm excited to be together today, and I actually want to pick up on my last solo episode where I was talking about transitions and, spoke a lot about personally, transitioning or preparing to head back to Chicago after the winter here in Mexico, and then just talking bigger in the land of transitions and how we mark them. And that's what I want to pick up on, the marking of transitions. Particularly, it was striking me in a way more than it has before around how this time of year, like, yes, spring, that's an obvious transition from winter to spring, and, metaphors, depending on where you live, that go along with that. But really, the coming out of the dark time and into the light. And I don't think it's an accident that there are so many religious holidays, at this time. And, we're not going to get into this, and it's, not necessarily the purpose here to look at how they layer upon each other and, how have we come to be practicing what we practice, whether you practice a specific religious rituals at this time and have, special times with that, or have some time in your past or, whatnot. I think it's one of those times of year, given how prevalent and prominent it is. I live in Western culture here. So a few of the key holidays are Passover, very sacred time on the Jewish calendar and in the Jewish religion. Easter, in the Christian paradigm and in the Christian religion. This year, in 2022, Ramadan falls at this time in the Muslim calendar. That one shifts through the year. There's others that are, as in a Western culture and being raised Christian, I didn't even know about, but there's Waisakhi, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, but an ancient, festival for Hindus that simultaneously celebrates the solar new year and spring harvest. There's an important Jain holiday. This was the birth of Lord Mahavira, the founder of Jainism. And I know there's others, and I apologize if I'm excluding any, but I just want to name, like, wow, that's quite a list. We don't necessarily talk about the fact that they happen in the spring and they happen in relationship to when the first full moon of spring is. Who knew that that's why Easter moved around? I was raised Christian and I didn't even know that. So there's so many ties and deeper understandings. And I'm bringing this to light, through the lens of rewriting the Mother Code, right? And where and in my coaching with women and so much of it is about the exploration of what is the current culture and how things are practiced, and particularly in the mothering lens, what is the mothering culture of this time, but then realizing that it's our responsibility and incumbent on us to understand how we got here. And while I'm not going to do that for each one of these major religious holidays, I think it's ours, not just to look at our own, but others, and, look for similarities versus differences, and, what's possible when we look at it from, we're all connected, right? And one of the aspects, in this month, since it is such a spiritually rich month. And I'm going to add in there, I forgot to mention this when I gave the list. It's also the month we decided to celebrate Earth Day. That's a newer one to the program, not necessarily tied to any particular religion, so to speak, but it is celebrating Mother Earth and bringing awareness, bringing consciousness. And, I believe we set up rituals in our lives, and we set up ways to honor. And, some of them, and we might have judgments of how other people do it versus how we do it, and can get very exclusionary in that way. And I think the same holds true in mothering, right? Like one woman's mothering practices may look very odd or different, and I don't understand it, but it's my responsibility to understand it and to be curious, right? Curiosity from not to, win or be superior, but curiosity out of a good faith place of understanding and expanding my awareness, expanding my knowledge, yes, so I can, contribute and be a part of the world at large, but also, selfishly, that I can add to my practices. I can, see and make connections. And, that's been a bit, my religious/spiritual journey has been a very rich one, and one that I'm excited about and proud of. The ways I have dug in, and there's a long way to go. I mean, there's, I'm not going to sit here and proclaim that's been something I've given so much time and effort to, but it's there, right? And it is something I've dedicated a lot of time and attention to. And every year I go on a spiritual pilgrimage. That's one of my spiritual disciplines. And while I was raised Catholic, I hit a point after graduating college where I started to question, what does that really mean to me? And do I even really understand the Catholic faith and the Catholic religion? And I went on an initial journey just exploring that, and, what made sense to me, what resonated with me, and, things that we just kind of take for granted. And I'm relating this back to mothering, right? Like, oh, I'm going to be a mother, or I'm going to do this because that's how I was raised, and that's what I'm used to, and that's what's comfortable. But to uncover all that and be willing to challenge, some of the things that quote unquote were sacred, or, that you don't question. And that was one of my criticisms of how I was raised Catholic. And I'm going to not generalize. I'm going to make this specific to my experience being raised a Catholic, where we weren't taught to question. It was, these are the rules. This is how it is. This is what you do. And there's some beautiful things, of course, but there's this lane that you stay in. And, as I explored and ventured into other territories and exploration, I realized, like, well, I don't agree with that. And, but what do I believe in? What did I want to make my practices? And there were some things that got uncovered for me that I found really useful and helpful as I went and been on, my spiritual journey. And that was making this distinction on a reference point, like a way to think about myself. And that was, I think I was going about life, thinking of my life as this, I'm a human, I'm living this human life, and I can add spirituality to it. I can add spiritual practices, and I can learn about it. And I don't think it's that at all. And I'm pretty sure it was probably on one of our pilgrimages that Dr. Judith Wright, who was leading the pilgrimage, said, how about if we flip that on its head? And rather than adding some spiritual moments or adding spirituality to my human temporal life, how about I think about it the other way, and that I am a spiritual being living a human life. And that just changed everything for me. That was suddenly, maybe as a spiritual being, it might be kind of awkward to be a human. And I had these thoughts like, just because I'm a spiritual being doesn't mean I absolutely know how to live the best human life I can. And I think that's the journey of consciousness. That's the journey of awareness. And in rewriting the mother code, taking something that we may decide to do in our life of raise children, or if we decide to hold mothering as something, that we experience in all the things that we care about, then I'm learning how to have that very human experience, but have it be something that extends beyond that, that expands beyond the, how do I raise a good kid, to how am I in communion, with this child? How am I growing with them? How are we connected? And then we can get technical. It's like, well, systems theory tells us how we're connected. And as a family, we're a system. And that's all of that helps us navigate this human experience. But with this backdrop that I am a spiritual being.
Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather if that's the space that you're in and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.gertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat.
And then another thing that really was significant for me on my spiritual journey was learning about mysticism. I don't know what I thought of the word, maybe in my history, it sounded very big and something, really for sure only saints experienced, big experiences of apparitions of God and some pretty far out stuff. But to really break it down and see that the key word for me in defining mysticism is that it's unmediated, right? And that was once I kind of got on board with this mysticism aspect, I think some of the religions, well, the religion I grew up in, everything was, through a mediator. You had your experiences of God or Christ or Mary, through a priest, through somebody else, that you really weren't encouraged to have direct experiences. And I love Mirabai Starr. She's author of the book Wild Mercy, Living the Fierce and Tender Wisdom of the Women Mystics. And she's really just a beautiful being. And I've only started to get to know and read her stuff, but it's very empowering. She said that a mystic is a person who has a direct experience of the sacred, unmediated by conventional religious rituals or intermediaries. And that really opened up a space for me. And that's something I'd love to open up for, all of you in the audience is, and it relates to rewriting the mother code, right? How do I have my own unique experience? What's my journey? How do I, go inside and discover me and then connect that to bigger possibilities? And it's why I call the third area of rewriting the mother code the cosmic area, because just by expanding the definition of mothering to include all, and I say all, I usually say all women, but it really is everyone, to have and inhabit that experience of mother, the conceiving, creating, giving birth, raising of a child or whatever, right? This power of creation, this power of nurturance, this power of, the powerful creator, destroyer, all these aspects of mother are inherent in all of us, and how do we connect with that in a way that is empowering, a way that's positive, so it helps create positive change in myself and transformation in myself and others. And I think, these are some of the ways. And and then I think spiritual practices, and I think honoring through ritual and honoring, important happenings. And I love that about the world religions, claiming the importance of certain times and marking them. And they're then a reason to come together and celebrate in community and bring together under, similar beliefs and similar ways of that we can connect, through this experience. The Easter experience is one of death and rebirth. But I think rather than just kind of come mindlessly to any of these, and because it's how I was raised and what I did, but to put my own critical thought into it, to try and understand, and not just from a head space, but from a heart space, and then make it personal. What does this symbolize for me? And then, there's some really beautiful ways. And then once you start exploring and discovering, you might connect with somebody who has meditations, possibilities, ways, to go inward and connect and meditate on a particular mantra that can take you very deeply into a mystical space. I feel very grateful to have had, and I talked about it in another episode, right, where I felt like I had a mystical experience with these spirit guides, elders, guiding me into this next phase of my life in menopause. And I think, not trying to overthink it or explain it or, explain it away, but just allow it. And, that experience has and continues to inform me and provide a vehicle for me to keep exploring this phase of my life and a way to connect. It could be these inner guides or an inner part of me and a way to explore and discover myself. And I think mothering and motherhood is the same thing, right? That we have a lot of inner awareness, inner being. And if we're this spiritual being having this human experience, I want to have as much of the experience as I possibly can. I want to expand myself. I want to feel as much of it. I want to be conscious, awake, and aware and engage with it as fully as I can. And, there's a lot in our culture and maybe at varying degrees, in our families that restrict that. And what is it that we're restricting? And in my opinion, we're restricting the power and the possibility when we unleash and really allow that full mother presence for ourselves. So this is some of what's been kind of stirring for me, and I'm holding it, and it's kind of helping me that April's the month where, have chosen to transition back to Chicago, but that I'm buoyed and supported. And, there's so much of this energy in the air this month, and I can find ways to tap into that because I'm preparing and aware that as much as I prepare and am aware of a transition, they're a big thing. And I think having that awareness, but this awareness that I'm not alone, and use, anything that's available to me, and what's, out there and available that's inspiring. And I think there's so much inspiration in the religious holidays and the happenings of this month that I plan to tune in, to them, and have been and will continue to. And I find it just this huge, huge blessing to be able to live this human life, and being on with you and being able to share this podcast is one of my human experiences that has brought me much learning and much delight. And I would actually really love to know even more from you, the audience, what is resonating with you. And I would love to dive even deeper into topics of conversation that have meaning to you. I'm curious to know what you, my community of empowered mothers, think and want to know. Send me a DM on Instagram, letting me know what has resonated most, and what are you craving for next on Mother Her podcast. So that's a wrap. I'm going to leave us there, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to subscribe to Mother Her. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women, well, actually everybody, men included. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful, and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons, or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.